people, to encourage people, and to say we need one another. I saw that in the Times yesterday, on the front page, there was an article about the burning of the Quran, supposedly unintentional, burning of the Quran in Afghanistan. And there was a tremendous outcry. And I understand that. You know, if it was a Torah, it was some other holy document, there would be an outcry. But I also asked myself, but why isn't there an outcry for the Christians who are being slaughtered in so many places? Where's the noise there? Why do we have this kind of selective anger when we only speak out in this place, but we don't speak out in another? So I would hope that when we look at the Bible, remember two people. One was Shiphrah, one was Puah. They were Egyptian midwives. They saved Moses' life. Why do they do it? They put their own lives in danger because Pharaoh had decreed that every Jewish male should be thrown into the river. But they said, we're not going to obey Pharaoh, because they felt it's the right thing to do, to disobey that kind of immoral directive and to try to save an innocent Jewish life. So years ago, when I came to New York, I was invited. I remember it was Edwin O'Brien, who recently became a cardinal, one of the two Americans who became cardinal, and he invited me to his installation when he became archbishop. And it was at St. Patrick's Cathedral. And I was about to go in, and an elderly Catholic woman stopped me. She said, you need a ticket to go into the see this. And I want to see it. I don't have a ticket. I said, I happen to have an extra ticket. Take mine. And she looked at me and she said, who are you? I said, I'm a rabbi. She said, a rabbi? Only in New York, for a Catholic to get into St. Patrick's Cathedral, you need a rabbi to give you a ticket. All right? And I think that is the message, that we got to open doors for one another. We can't just remain in our separate enclaves, in our, these separate communities, and only worry about what happens to us. Because you know very well that it may start with the Jews, but it doesn't stop with the Jews. And the person who will attack me today will attack you tomorrow. So it's about time that we truly were using a louder voice. They say the Holocaust happened because those who should have shouted were silent. We need a little more shouting to go on. And to realize that, yes, God created one, and from the one there were many, but there comes a time when the many of us have to stand together as one. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Protasky, for this inspiring speech. Now I would like to call upon our second speaker, who is Reverend Dr. Elias Malun. He is the Education and Interreligious Affairs Officer at the Catholic Near East Welfare Association. Reverend Elias Malun, a native New Yorker, is an ordained member of the Franciscan Friar of the Atonement. Father Elias was first professed in August of 1963 and was ordained in January 1971. He obtained a licentiate degree in Old Testament studies and a PhD in Middle Eastern languages from the Catholic University of America. He researched and wrote his dissertation at the Eberhard Karls University in Germany. He has been involved in the Roman Catholic Christian-Muslim dialogue on the local, national, and international level since 1985. He has published several articles and books on Islam. The first book was Neighbors, Muslims in North America. His latest book is entitled Islam, What Catholics Need to Know. And and also his latest article, The 99 Beautiful Names of God. He has also worked with the Westminster Press on 2 programs of its Thoughtful Christian series. Father Elias worked for 6 years at a non-governmental organization at the United Nations, where he used his experience and contact with Islam to work with Muslim countries and NGOs. He is on the NGO Israel-Palestine Working Group. Please join me in welcoming Father Elias Malun.
Thank you very much. It's very good to be here, and I'm grateful to Ibrahim as he starts his work here in New York. I have a little more than passing familiarity with the work of Fethullah Gulen, and it's sort of an interesting strand in Islam, something to be watched. I was asked to speak on anti-Semitism and Roman Catholics. Two huge topics. I remember years ago speaking at the graduation at Hebrew Union down on East 4th Street, and saying to the rabbinical students who were graduating, you may not know it, the leaders of my church may not know it, but I belong to a non-white church. Roman Catholics, the vast majority of Roman Catholics are not white. The vast majority of Roman Catholics have never seen and never will see a Jew. So you have, there's their understanding of Judaism is what they get from the liturgy or from the Bible, unfiltered through any attempts at further education or things like that. So there's sort of a knee-jerk anti-Semitism because there really hasn't been any alternative offered. The Catholic Church officially, in its decree Nostra Aetate, which was promulgated on October 28, 1965, almost 60 years ago, 50 years ago, did several things. One, it opened itself to non-Christian religions, Islam, Judaism, and basically the great other religious traditions of the world. Anti-Semitism, intolerance, hatred is a very, very complex thing. That when you disrespect people, there's a basic hatred. You know, oh, I love you and I'm very tolerant, but my theology says you're going to hell and there's nothing you can do about it. Now, that may not be called anti-Semitism because it's far more ecumenical in its reach, but it sets the ground for anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, anti-Hindu, and one of the things I think that was important about Nostra Aetate is that the Roman Catholic Church says that it rejects nothing of truth and value in the great religious traditions of the world, Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, and Judaism too. Having said that, and having worked for, well, over 30 years now, in the mostly Catholic, Christian, Muslim dialogue, something is happening, and I'm not exactly sure what. I live in Greenwich Village, and from where I stood, I could see people jumping out of the World Trade Center. First, I thought it was windows popping out, and then I realized it wasn't. And a woman walked by, a young woman in the hijab, and I thought, oh, God, don't let it be Muslims. Well, it was Egyptians and some Saudis. At that time, for the most part, there were some acting out in the United States, but for the most part, Americans behaved well. That's changing. That it's hard to put my finger on exactly when things started to go sour, but they have. And I'm not sure why. A friend of mine who works in Pax Christi has a theory that, at least in the United States, it's part of a nativist type of movement that is anti-Semitic, racist as all get out, and basically ignorant. And it's her theory that a section of the population has the feeling that it has lost control. And that what we have, and this might be one of the turning points, we have a black Muslim president. And her theory is that has gotten this nativist core in our culture going. And so what happens is that it feeds into things that are latent. I see, on the one hand we have Nostra Aetate, and yet on the other hand, Daisy Khan, whom you may know, she's the wife of Abdurrauf, in a conversation with her, she mentioned, well, a lot of the people who were demonstrating against Park 51 were Roman Catholics, and I was shocked. And then I thought about it, and I said, well, the demographic composition of the New York Police and Fire Department, yeah, they probably would be Roman Catholics. And it came clear to me that we have a problem. We have a pastoral problem. What happens, I think, when new groups come, whether they be Jews in the 18th and 19th century, Catholics in the late 18th century, Muslims in this century, when they're the newcomers, they tend to hang together because they're afraid of the other. And then when they get successful, they ignore the other because they don't need the other. But in either case, the other is being ignored, not understood, and it's very easy in a situation where there is a lack of understanding and a lack of respect and a lack of human contact for racism, anti-Semitism, let's call it what is bigotry, to surface. And so one thing I would disagree with you about education. There's a difference between education and training. A lot of our people, our young people now, are trained. They're not educated. They don't analyze. They are not, everything's done on a computer. Everything is organized. Any type of any cultural thing, much less cross-cultural thing, tends to get swallowed up into Pac-Man, Angry Birds, and the rest. And these children grow up not knowing the other, not encountering the other, and then they may not be anti-Semitic, anti-Muslim, or bigots by nature, but they're sort of tender for what it can become. That under the right type of circumstances, they can feed into it in a natural type of propensity that we human beings have for going for the lowest possible common denominator. So I agree 100% that we have to work more closely together. The other thing that I am very, very convinced of after over 30 years in the Muslim, Catholic, and Christian dialogue is that if we are a bunch of talking heads, no matter how interesting I may find the topic, and I find a lot of topics interesting, if it doesn't make it down to what I as a Catholic would call the congregational level, it just doesn't make it, period.